Hey, and welcome to day 112 of your daily Bible reading. So today is, gotta get my notes out. Today is April 22nd. We are doing we are all over the place with your reading today. So if you've never been here before, this is your first time viewing this video and me and all that I do. We are using the 1 Year Chronological Bible reading plan, which you can find online at the 1 Year Chronological Bible online.com. And I'm telling you this because today's reading, it's even too much for me to read. It's all little pieces. It's a little bit of 2 Samuel 5. It's a little bit of 1 Chronicles. We go into 11 and 12 and 3 and 14. So there's just like a couple verses here and there. It's all over the place. So try and check out that reading first. If you don't, I'm going to try and do my best to go along with it and kind of shout it out as we go along. But it's a lot of repetitive reading, which is good because you're going to see the story once and you're going to see the exact same story the second time, or there might be maybe an addition of a sentence or two, so a verse or two. Okay, so I did the 1 year plan, so we know what we're doing. Today is day 113. I don't think I did that. So today we're on day 113. It is April 22nd. And I'm hoping that you're back with me. I'm hoping you did your reading for today. We are with David. And so the point that we're at, not to go too far backwards, is that Saul has died and David has just gotten the kingdom from Abner. So Abner was the first in command after Saul. He then got Ishbosheth, his son, Saul's son, to be the king. And then that sort of didn't work out. And so Abner then went to David and got Israel and all the elders from Israel and even the tribe of Benjamin, which is Saul's tribe, to agree to go under the leadership of David that Abner knew the Lord wanted anyway. So he knew this was ordained by the Lord, and he was just holding out. And then after that, Joab, one of the guys in David's command, was because of his brother, he took revenge on Abner and killed Abner. So Abner is no more. David is the king, and that is where we start today. So he is the king over Israel. The Israel encompasses 12 tribes. Some of them are actually in what is considered now Israel. Some of them are on the outside of Israel, and so they're in like Jordan and Lebanon. So some are up north in Lebanon and Syria. So they take up a little bit extra on the outside of Israel as well. So here we go. Going to our reading. Our reading again is in Samuel. So we're starting in 2 Samuel 5, 1 through 3. And then essentially this exact same reading is in 1 Chronicles 11, 1 through 3. So starts out with all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel in the military campaigns. And the Lord said to you, you will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler." And then right afterwards it says, when all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, the king made a covenant with them, and they anointed David king. So what I wanted to point out and note here is in that verse 2, where it says, you will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler. This is what the Lord said to David, that you're going to shepherd my people and you're going to become their ruler. Now, these are two different things, and I want to make note of these two different things because this is really important. This is also something that we saw in Moses. Moses both shepherded and he ruled, but I think this is more so in David. I think we see more of the ruling portion in David, but it's the same general, like it hasn't really been that way, right? So in the past we saw Moses who led them, and then his brother Aaron was the high priest. And so David is, but then after that, it was Joshua, and then there were judges that came up after that, and then there was Saul, of course. So this is David, and David is meant to shepherd. And so to shepherd is to guide, to guard, and to take care of, right? So, and I'm giving you these things because these aren't just throwaway words. Like some things we don't need to take maybe so deeply to heart, but some of these words are really important. So he's a godly leader. And so he's to take care of his people. He's to care for them, and he's to love them like a shepherd would love his sheep. He is to guide them. So he's going to let them know where they're supposed to be going, what they're supposed to be doing. So it's guidance through his behaviors and obviously through his leadership and through his rulings. and he's to guard them as well. So he's there to protect them from other people. So he has a huge job as a shepherd. So he's protecting his people, he's taking care of them, and he's guiding them. Now, the other thing he's supposed to be doing is he's supposed to be ruler over them. And so he's literally supposed to rule over them. And in ruling, it's you're in control, you direct, and you exercise authority. And so he's supposed to be doing all these things as well. So he is in control of the entire nation of Israel. So right now we have all the 12 tribes back. Now Moses started with about 1 million people. I'm going to venture a guess that David had more at this point. I'm sure we're eventually going to get numbers. Right now we don't have numbers. But David had more people under his control and under his command. And so he was supposed to rule all over all of these people. He was supposed to direct them. So guiding them as being a little bit more like you're guiding them in by leading, by showing them the way to do. This is to direct them. So you're actually telling them what they're supposed to do. And then he's exercising authority over them. He's in charge. He's the judge. He's the ultimate, right? So if he goes wrong, we got a problem. Right now, we don't see that. Right now, we see that he's consistently honoring the Lord, right? We see in all of these things, he asks the Lord, he thanks the Lord, he always says that the Lord has led, right? Maybe by his hand, but the Lord has always led. So he always recognizes that the Lord is in control of his actions and he has control over the people of Israel. So he has a great responsibility and a great duty. He also has great power. So we're going to have to see how he uses that power. All right, so moving on to this 1 Chronicles 12, moving down to 23 through 40. It says, these are the numbers of the men armed for battle who came to David at Hebron to turn Saul's kingdom over to him. So now David is having this, I want to call it a to-do. He's having this big celebration, ceremony, if you will, like whatever it is that you want to call it. All the people are coming in from all of the tribes, and they're coming in to honor and bless him. And so they're bringing in numbers of people. These are guys prepared for battle. So these are guys are coming in as warriors. And each one, I just want to read a little snippet because each one has, every tribe has a certain thing about them that is unique. So Judah is carrying shield and spear. Simeon are warriors that are ready for battle. Levi, which I find interesting because the Levites, we don't tend to think of as warriors. These are the ones that are the priests that are taking care of all the synagogues. Jehoiada was the leader of the family of Aaron. So if you remember, Aaron was Moses' brother and he was the high priest. So this guy was in the family of the high priests. And then Zadok, who we don't necessarily know who he is. We've never heard of him before. He's a young warrior and he brought 22 officers from his family. So we see that they brought people in. Benjamin, they were Saul's tribe and they remained loyal to Saul until the very end. They were the last tribe that came in, if you guys remember yesterday, under Abner's command. And Abner's really influence, he guided them and told them that this was what the Lord wanted. And so they were the last ones to come over because they were loyal to Saul, because Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. And then we see Ephraim. Ephraim, they were brave warriors, famous in their own clans. And this is everything, and it's going to say the half tribe of Manasseh. And I just want to point out, this is everything that is inside the nation, the land of Canaan or the land of Israel. This is everything on the inside. The half tribe of Manasseh made David king, so we didn't really see a whole lot about them. Issachar understood the times and knew what Israel should do, so they sent chiefs and people. So it seems like they are smart. They're a smart tribe. Zebulun is experienced soldiers prepared for battle with every type of weapon. So they have some ultimate experience with weapons. They also have undivided loyalty. And then Naphtali, they were carrying shields. So they had officers and men, and they were carrying shields and spears, much like Judah. And then Dan was ready for battle. Asher sent experienced soldiers prepared for battle. And now on the other side, where we have those 2.5 tribes, it says they were armed with every type of weapon, and they came in with 120,000 men. So this is a lot of men that comes in. They were all fighting, and so it was all these fighting men who volunteered to serve in the ranks. They came to Hebron fully determined to make David king over all of Israel. And then it says the men spent 3 days with David, eating and drinking, for their families had supplied. So everyone's bringing food, right? So David's family supplies food. Everyone's coming in. They're bringing food. They're celebrating. They're having this big party in order to make David king. So they have all this food. Everything was plentiful and everything was good. There was joy in Israel. Amazing. Then we come to war. So now David is king. He's leading all the people. 2 Samuel 5:17-25. Verse 17, when the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king, they came to find him. So here we go. This is where I say that David, we consistently see at this point that David is following the Lord, right? David is doing what the Lord wants him to do. So the Philistines are coming. Anyone would probably say, let's go out and fight them, right? They come to us, we're going to go to them. They come looking for me, I'm going to go to them. Well, David didn't do that. David went and sat with the Lord. And he asked the Lord what he was supposed to do. So he brought the ephod with him and he asked if he should go out. And the Lord says, yep, go for, he doesn't say yep. He says, go, for I'll surely deliver the Philistines into your hands. So David went to Baal Perazim, and there he defeated him. Philistines abandoned their idols. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was that things are coinciding. So 2 Samuel 5:17-25 is coinciding with Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 14:8-17. The difference here is that we see that when the Philistines lost this battle, they left all their idols there. Because remember, mostly everyone is worshiping some kind of God, right? You don't hear too much of people not believing in a God at all. They were all believing sort of either in certain lesser gods, the gods of their own making, whatever it might be. But they were all believing in something. They carried idols, right? This idol was sort of a protective thing. It meant that their God was with them. And so they all had these. Anyway, they left them there. And in the 2 Samuel verse, we don't hear about it, but in the 1 Chronicles verse, it says that they burned all of their idols. So the Israelites burned all the idols of the Philistines. And then it happens again. The Philistines come up in a slightly different area, and David inquires of the Lord again. And then this time the Lord says, yes. Then he gives them a battle strategy. He says, I want you guys to go around this time and get them that way. And so David does that, and they win this battle again. So at this point, they've won some good battles against the Philistines. And so I want to move on to 2 Samuel 5:6-10. It says in verse 6, now they're going to fight the Jebusites. So if you guys remember, the Jebusites were ones that stayed in the land. And again, God had told them he had already rid them of everything in the area, but the people let people from other nations stay. They started worshiping their gods, right? They started intermarrying and everything with them. And that was not what they were supposed to do. So at this point, we have Jebusites in there. And the Jebusites are so pompous that they're like, you guys can't even possibly get in here. And so on that day, verse 8, David says, anyone who conquers the Jebusites will have to use the water shaft to reach those lame and blind who were David's enemies. He's being a little bit snarky. And then they say the blind and the lame will not be able, that's why they say the blind and the lame won't be able to enter this place. So they built up a residence in this fortress. Now this area is Jerusalem. And so it says Zion for David. So then David winds up entering this land, and he starts building up they win, and they start building up their territory in this land. They build up more and more territory. And then it says he became more and more powerful, verse 10, because the Lord God Almighty was with him. So this is again similar to 1 Chronicles 11, but in verse 6 it says, whoever leads the attack on the Jebusites will become commander in chief. So there's a little bit of a difference here. And then what we see that Joab winds up doing this. Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went up first, and he received the command. So now we see that somebody received the command from that. So then David takes that residence, and once again we see he starts building up Jerusalem. Going down, it says he ruled in Jerusalem for 33 years. So he ruled a total of 40 years because he was 7 years in Hebron, and then he was 33 years in Jerusalem. And so he was king for a total of 40 years. So it says David was 30 when he became king, and he reigned for 40 years. Now they're going to build David's palace. So at this point, he's won a whole bunch of battles. He's doing really well. Everybody's happy. He's leading. He's loving them. He's shepherding, right? It's all been really good. And so they're going to build David a palace. And so the king of Tyre, or Hiram, king of Tyre, which is in the land of Israel, right? So he's all the way up in the tribe of Asher. So he starts sending stuff down. He starts sending down cedars, and right, all this stuff for David. So He's responding to him as the king, sending all this stuff to him to build a castle. And he sends envoys to David as well. And so it says here, then David knew, so in verse 12, David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel and had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people. So the Lord, here we go. The Lord has exalted his kingdom for the sake of Israel. So David's kingdom is blowing up for the sake of the people of the Lord. So for God's people. So this is all about God. He's taking no credit. He's taking no, probably credit's the best word. He's taking no credit for, and it's not for him. So he's taking no credit as if he did it, and it's also not because they're doing it. That not because the Lord isn't doing it for David. It is doing it for the sake. The Lord is doing it for the sake of the people of Israel, who are, as we've established time and time and time again in the past, God's chosen people that God pulled out of Israel. Couldn't spit that out. Took out of slavery, right? So they lifted him up out of Israel, took them out of slavery, and brought them into what God considered the land of milk and honey. So this is God's chosen people, and he's lifting up and he's glorifying his chosen people. And so what David wants to do is David wants to bring the ark back because of it. So in 1 Chronicles 13, it says, David conferred with each of his officers, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, and they said to the whole assembly, let's get everybody here, including all the Levites. Let's get everybody back into where I am right now, which, again, millions of people probably at this point. And then it says in verse 3, let us bring the ark of our God back to us, for we did not inquire of it when during the reign of Saul. To bring up this point, I want to just make a note because the ark was really important. So it's like remembering past episodes, right? Like I'm saying episodes like TV shows, not necessarily episodes of my own, but like sort of recapping some episodes. The ark was built only by Moses. The ark was then hidden. The only people that could go into the ark were the high priests. So were the sons of Aaron. Aaron was Moses's brother. So very few people could see the ark. It was really important that it was protected. And this was where God came down in between these two built cherubim, and he came down and he spoke to the high priest. So this was his connection to his people. He was living in that ark, so to speak, in the land of his people, right? So we want to see, so noting that this is a really important thing, this ark, right? And the ark was then taken because the ark would lead out into war. Well, at one point, God was like, nope, I'm not with you in this war. And the Philistines got the ark. And then the ark did all kinds of damage to both the people and their god, Dagon, that they worshipped. And so just by itself, with no other people in the room, just by itself, the ark did damage to things. And so they moved the ark. They sent the ark back to the Israelite people. But once it got back to the Israelite people, it was causing some chaos there. There was like, if you looked at it wrong, like things happened, right? Because this was God. You weren't even supposed to look at it. No one was supposed to look at it but the high priest. He made very specific rules. And so it's been sitting in this one place for years. And so now David is like, Saul didn't consult us, right? Saul didn't consult. Not that David isn't still talking to God through the ephod and through dreams and through prophets and all other things. But the ark is where God sits with the entire people of Israel. So now it's time to bring the ark back, right? So he's going to go. He wants all of his people around to celebrate. So he goes to this guy's house who it's been sitting in front of for a few years. And the guy's two sons, we get this thing somehow they get it on a cart. We don't really mention how it's gotten on a cart, but it's gotten on a cart. And they're walking it back in like a procession. They're walking it back and everybody's really excited. So they're all excited that the ark is coming home where it belongs, coming into to the king, to the land where David is. And what happens is an ox stumbles and one of the brothers goes out to grab the ark, I guess, thinking or assuming that it's going to fall, and he immediately dies. And David is very unhappy. He's mad at God, which shows us a couple of things. I think that I don't want to say that we can be mad at God. I don't want that to be a take home. But we certainly can question God, and we can be upset with some of the things that he does in our lack of understanding of why he does it, right? And I'm going to tell you, I don't fully understand why he did it. If the ark was going to fall, wouldn't it have been better to protect it? But of course, completely on the other hand is that God is in charge of the ark. So it's either going to fall or not going to fall based on what God does. So this is one of those moments where it's hard to fully comprehend the reasoning behind it. But I'm going to say what I can see is we are supposed to fear the Lord. He says it over and over and over again. All before we've gotten to this point in history, he says it over and over again. And I gave you a little bit of recap because we can see the presence of the ark and what it actually did. Remember, it by itself sitting in a building with another idol, well, with an idol, which was Dagon, dropped that thing on its face, shattered it, right, into a couple of different pieces, gave people tumors and boils, right? Again, when people looked at it, even the Israelite people, God's chosen people, harm happened to them. So there's a reverence and an actual fear that if the right thing wasn't done by the Israelite people, and I want to be clear that it's the Israelite people, the right thing wasn't done, there was an action for that. Those people needed to put God where he belonged. And this was the house that God made for himself. So I'm hoping there's an understanding there, right? It has nothing to do with the actual stone or the wood or the whatever it was made out of, right? The whatever the cherubim were made out of, which I can't even, the gold and the bronze and all that. So that wasn't like tainted or anything like that. God isn't ultimately vengeful and a nasty God. There's something to be said about revering the Lord. And I think it's really hard for us to comprehend. I think in our human nature, we have a problem. Well, first of all, I don't think we want to be afraid of anything. And, we want to think that we can beat anything or we can conquer anything. And so I think being afraid of something is a very uncomfortable place to sit in, and recognizing that God has the ability and the right to do to me anything that he wants to do makes me a little wary, right? So then I have to remember that God is also the God that sent his son for me to have a relationship directly with him, right? Through Jesus. So I think that, we need to have both of these balance systems in order to remember exactly who our God is. So just want to move on a little bit from there because he was very upset about it. And then it says, going to verse 11, the ark of the Lord remained in the house of, so he was so upset that he didn't even bring it back. He sent it to this house of Obed-Edom, and then he left it there for 3 months because he was upset about what God did. And so in verse 12 of 1 Chronicles 13, 6 through 14, it says, David was afraid of God that day and asked, how can I ever bring the ark of God to me? He did not take the ark to be with him in the city of David. Instead, he took it to Obed-Edom, and the Lord blessed that guy's household and everything was in it. So here we go again with this balance of who God is. The person who touched it where they weren't supposed to died. The person whose house it went to, who didn't offer to have it at their house, was blessed, and their entire household was blessed. So the Lord works both of those ways because he is the Lord. And that's how we're ending today. So I want you to like this video if you watch it and it's blessed you. I want you to share it with other people. And I want you to subscribe to the channel. So if you're listening, subscribe so you keep getting the videos so you can see them every day. I will see you guys next time when we hear more about what's happening down here. And guys, keep reading.